This is a Cinemaker Gardener Dachshund.
Mano mano. Mano mano. Mano mano. Mano mano. Mano mano. Oh.
Hello everyone. Wow, this is the first time I've ever just sat back and listened to Mano Mano. I love that tune. I've loved it since Mano Mano come on board. I just thought, just for today, we'll just, let it ride. Let it ride, guys. Welcome back to the podcast. I hope you are well. For everyone that's asked about the squirrel incident, yes, I am much better now. I'm getting on the mend. I'll be back here, there, everywhere, maybe next week. I think I'll come back next week on the old socials. I can't talk about the incident much anymore because of some legal issues. But all I can say, if you haven't listened to the other podcast, is yes, I was attacked by a squirrel and it is being dealt with. That's as much as I can talk about. If you don't know what that's all about, then head back past the past few podcasts and you'll find out. Right, before we carry on, this week we've got an awesome podcast with Mr. Valentine Warner on the show. Oh yeah, little bit of cooking. But first, you like me may be thinking that this coming weekend is the best time to fix that rotten decking, tidy the allotment, or fix that drip and tap. I've still not sorted mine out, by the way. Well, Mano Mano is literally selling everything you could possibly need for your next DIY or garden project. Fill up your basket on manomano.co.uk, Mano, right now with everything for this weekend's project and enjoy the rest of the day safe, or the rest of the week, should I say. The rest of the week safe in the knowledge that your tools and materials are on their way. Mano Mano are here to help Mano with the best products, the best brands, and the big... I've lost it. I was thinking of the Mano Mano thing. And the biggest range at the best of prices. manomano.co.uk. Mano. Get that project finished this weekend. If it's stuck in your head, like a little bit, that Mano Mano song is stuck in my head like Baby Shark, baby. All parents will know this. Baby Shark, Mommy Shark. I won't go into it, but it will stick in your head. Right, hit the just like this. Hit the intro, and if that is the intro, you can only imagine how scatty I'm going to be throughout this podcast. Hit the intro.
Skinny jeans, not my lover. It's just a guy that taught me about gardening. Skinny jeans, not my lover. It's just a guy that taught me about gardening.
Carol, what brought you down? I've always lived in the city. And I've always yearned for a garden. When I got the opportunity.
This here drink that I am drinking says 0 sugar, but I feel like it's got a lot of sugar in it. I'm buzzing. It's either that, or I'm buzzing to speak to you, dear listener, today on the Skinny Jean Gardener podcast. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much to Mano Mano for sponsoring this podcast. If you have got a task coming up, if the missus or the husband has got you on a job, said this weekend, this Saturday, can you fix that tap? A bit like my wife keeps telling me, and I'm like, I'll get it done. I'll get it done. Should listen to my own podcast, really. Well, if you're sitting there, if you're driving along on the way to work, if you're sitting in the office listening to this, or maybe you're potting around the allotment, pop on straight after this. Obviously, don't come away from this podcast. After this podcast, pop on to manomano.co.uk. See what you can get. They've got loads on there. Like, literally anything you need for this weekend's task. Order it on there. It's on its way. Ready for you to get going on. There's nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong about doing tasks at the weekend. But there's nothing worse, for me anyway. If I want to get a task done on a project, I get up in the morning on a Saturday, then I have to go down the shops. Now, it takes a lot of energy for me. I know it seems like a lot, doesn't it? To go down the shops. And then by the time I've got the gear, I've brought it back. I reckon this project's going to be moved to Sunday. Moved to Sunday, Sam. Alright? And it never gets done, does it? It never gets done. So if the stuff's there already, that could help me out. Help me out a lot. Anyway, that's enough on Mano Mano. I hope you had a good week. I'll tell you what, let me tell you something, right? It ain't half cold out there. Innit? It is getting a little bit chilly. I've had the heater on in the office. I did pop out during the week. Pop out. I did a project outside for something that I've got coming up. I thought, crikey, it is chilly. It is too cold for shorts. Although, obviously, I don't wear shorts, guys, because I am the Skinny Jean Gardener. Obviously. This week on the podcast, we have... Should we do straight in? Let's go straight in. We've got Ed Bird. Ed Bird is back this week, everyone. Let's go straight in with the interview this week. It's with Valentine Warner. Now, me and Valentine met each other earlier on this year at the Malvern Spring Show. And actually, he was sat opposite me at breakfast. I was like, I recognise you, but I don't want to say, just in case. I recognise you, but I don't want to... And we had a good old chat backstage, and he decided to come on the podcast, which was awesome. If you don't already know Valentine, then he is a chef, and he started his career on the BBC. Not reading this off Wiki, honestly. I'm not. Do you know what, though? It was good to get a good idea of how he thought. What he does, I mean, I don't want to ruin it for you. I don't want to ruin it. But it's like wild out there in the wild cooking. We talk about a deer. I mean, let's just say I don't want to go out on a day out of him before we have dinner because it sounds... I mean, you know, sure. I'm all up for... I mean, we talk about it in here, but I'm all up for eating strange meats and stuff. He does talk about gutting a rabbit. Yeah. Should we split this in two? Let's have part one with Valentine. It's the garden chit chat, the garden chit chat. It's the garden chit chat, the garden chit chat. It's a garden chit chat, it's a garden chit chat. Chat, 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 chat. The garden chit chat. That's his glamorous, mate, isn't it? So yeah, it's good to have you on the podcast. I didn't expect to get you on the podcast, actually.
Well, you never know when things are going to come around the corner.
Do you know what it is? I always see you like on the circuit. Is that the word for it? But we've never actually met each other.
Except we eyes over cooked breakfast.
Oh yeah, that's true. I was a bit scared to ask you, so I wasn't sure if you're going to say yes or not. But it's good to have you on. Can you tell us, without this sounding rude, what do you do?
What do I do? It's a strange question. I kind of, I'm a cook. I didn't call myself a chef because you can't run a restaurant just by being good at cooking. And all the other things that are entailed, kind of spreadsheets when staff want their holidays, I didn't really care about. I don't want to kind of deal with, those things, and so. But then I was very lucky and I ended up on television, and that opened a lot of doors for me. And so now, telly isn't frequent, but I write and I cook normally in other people's restaurants or, for a kind of travel thing. So, and I make alcohol.
Okay.
I've got a distillery up in Northumberland. So I kind of hop around between things, but that's my nature. I'm slightly kind of, bouncy person. So I need to move around a lot and be on my feet all the time. And so that's kind of what I do.
That's your job description.
Yeah.
But how would you end up at a garden festival?
I ended up at Garden Festival because the amazing Nina Acton, who has just got this kind of... she's a collector. She's a collector of people, and she got in touch with me and said, look, I really want you here.
Yeah.
You like nature. You are a link between... Cooking is bringing the outdoors indoors,
Yeah.
and I very much care about ingredients. I understand ingredients, and I love nature, and that's the way I cook. So it seemed very appropriate to have me at a kind of gardening show because I've got a kind of foot in each
bit.
bit.
It's absolutely perfect. Yeah, yeah. So with the whole nature thing, how do you source all your stuff that you get then?
I grew up in rural Dorset in the 70s.
Right.
And I had two parents. My father was a diplomat, but he was also a farmer. And I lived in rural Dorset, and it was a very, very different and still one of the last kind of farming strongholds then. And so my family are all obsessed with food. And my father had an amazing way of kind of animating nature. He was always producing rose hips out of his pockets to make cough syrup, or running through the door with handfuls of mushrooms to put on toast. There was cows. We were a dairy farm, so we used to go and collect the milk. And so, very soon as a little boy, everything was a question of edible or inedible. That's the kind of, we loved eating. Both parents were very good cooks. And also I had a propensity to sink my teeth into everything, whether it was kind of eating my sister's oil paints or biting people. So my inclination is always to kind of put things in my mouth. So I think for all the other things I kind of did until I understood I wanted to be a cook, I was always going that way basically. And nature really for me, nature and cooking, you separate the two and it comes at a great cost, and that's what's happening to us now. What was lovely about Dorset then is it was still a time which was full of people who knew where things were and used them.
Yeah.
Because it supplemented the table, because it gave them treats. Now we are a nation where you don't have to, that we're not rural, we're urban. Supermarkets sit on every corner. And so we're no longer required. That's the way things are. It's just a rant about supermarkets. But what happens is that we're no longer required to understand the old ways.
No.
And when you don't understand that, then they disappear. And then you get terrible squeamishness setting in. People, are so fussy, the young. I teach the young a lot, and they're so odd about ingredients. I handed somebody an artichoke the other day. I might as well have handed them a baby pangolin. They kind of didn't know what to do with it. So the countryside, nature, farming, it's very important to me. And I only hope to instill in people by telling them stories and putting delicious things in their mouth.
Yeah.
That, you might kind of jog some urge to kind of, that it may stay important. I mean, as I always say, we can't be here without nature.
No.
But it sure as hell can be here without us. It's going to go on anyway, so, I mind a lot.
Do you do a lot of growing your own food at home?
No, funnily, I sound like an imposter because while I'm saying all these things to you, I spend a lot of time in the country, fishing, getting out of London. But I live in London. So just after a few kind of rather complicated years now, I'm kind of settled. I've bought a house in Acton, and the first thing we're doing is putting raised bed. We're not keeping a lawn to sit on. We're filling up my small, West London house with raised beds.
Right.
So that's kind of, I think by having your hands in the soil, it does all sorts of things for people. I think it, if you get down, it's very helpful. I think it puts food on the table. But I think even if you can't be in the green spaces, just simply planting things in pots, it does very good things for the soul.
Definitely, yeah. Just being around it really is makes you feel better.
And it's important for kids. I think I really worry for children now. Every children's book you read, it's probably about nature or an animal or something. So that there's a wonderful default predilection for them to enjoy it. But in this ridiculous phone world, and here I am on Instagram doing all this silly stuff, this is bad. The bad apple. Eat the good apple, and ignore the bad apple.
Yeah. It's a tough one, isn't it? Because a lot, like you say, you do it, Instagrams, all that sort of thing. I'm trying to do the social media thing. Yeah. And at the same time, we're trying to tell people to get outside, get amongst it, start cooking, do stuff with your hands.
I think there's many things that the internet and social media are kind of, you argue, but good for. But to me, it represents half information. Yeah. I'll have a look. I think I know what I'm talking about now. It's not, there's a lot. We are here at the show, the Auburn Spring Show. It is full of people who have spent lifetimes getting better and better and better at what they do. This is the complete opposite. Yeah, exactly. And it shaves away information under the pretense of sharing it with everyone.
No, you're right. I do agree with it. It's one of them things where, like the other day, I was telling someone that I was walking down the street and I didn't have my phone on me. I was like, I didn't notice all this, like what was going on around me, because you're always with your head in your phone. You don't realise the nature and everything that's around you.
Well, I had a similar experience. I was in Norway and a moose was crossing in front of me. They're the most amazing animals, and but to see them in the thick of the wood, in knee deep in snow, huffing and puffing as they move. They weren't huffing. They're very silent. They're stealthy moose actually, and I was just trying to get a picture for Instagram. Yeah. And moose are quite sneaky, and I looked up and the moose had gone. Yeah. And I just thought, don't ever do that again.
There's something about just having something for yourself, like that memory of just seeing something rather than taking a photo and seeing it through a camera lens. Yeah. Sort of thing. It's
all of these things.
There's a good John Mayer lyric about that, but I can't remember what the hell it is.
Especially cooking. Cooking is a life skill. Yeah. And if children can't cook, they're not grown up. Yeah. And and what I mean by cooking, I don't mean putting something in a microwave and waiting for it to go ping. No. It's something you have to know. It's self-sufficient. And while we live in this wonderful world where we think nothing's ever going to, I'm not a doom and gloom and I'm not apocalyptic. Yeah. But to understand when you're standing next to a cob nut tree means that you have options. To understand, how to cook means you have options. It keeps you in touch with so many different things, because food isn't just about a plate of food. Yeah. It's about people who make it, it's about the place where they make it, it's about so many different things. But if you're uninterested in it, you miss out on so much life, and eating is fun. And I deal with a lot of kids who go, but that's slimy or fishy or thing, and then you go, does it smell fishy? And they go, no, it doesn't. Yeah. I go, well, is it slimy? They go, no, it's not. And you go, well, okay.
It's the garden chit-chat, the garden chit-chat. We'll come back to that later on in this show. Right, my good friend, should we do Ed? I cannot wait, honestly. Mr. Ed Bird getting me through this squirrel thing every time. Let's not talk about that, but maybe Valentine could sort that out for us. Right, Ed, every time I get a little email from Ed, a little bit of audio, almost makes me feel a little bit better. We've been talking a lot about plant families the past few weeks, which has been really interesting. So this week, let's see what Ed has got for us. Latin. Let's talk about the Latin.
Hi Lee and hi podcast listeners. Ed Bird back again to have another look at Latin. Now, the last couple of weeks I've been speaking about plant family names and why it's important to know a family name. So from now on, when I speak about a plant, I'm going to use both the family name, which almost always ends in ase, followed by the genus name, and finally the species name. So you've still got that binomial in there, but you've also got the family name. While the binomial, genus and species names are important, and the only names you need to know to identify a plant, I hope you can also see how important the family name is when deciding which plants to choose to fill any gaps in your garden. As we're heading into autumn, I thought we'd take a quick look at a genus this week that maybe more than any other is known for its autumn colour. It's a tree, and it's a really versatile tree with species that can be grown as spectacular bonsais, right up to huge trees that you would see in the countryside or in a field. The genus this week is the Acer genus, more commonly known as the maple genus. In Latin, Acer means sharp, pointed or piercing, and if you can imagine the leaves of an Acer or a maple on the Canadian flag, they're usually lobed and they are usually pointed with quite a sharp point on them. The Acer genus is in the Sapindaceae family, and species include plants or trees such as the Acer campestre or the field maple. This is a really common sight in the British countryside. It's a large tree, often find it in hedgerows or in a field. It's known as a field maple. Acer nigrum, otherwise known as the black maple, and this is one of a couple of species that maple syrup is made from. And the final one is Acer palmatum. This is quite a common, slow, small growing tree, often found in gardens, and is really well known for its bright autumn colours. I was driving through a village up here in North Yorkshire yesterday, and there was just this ball of orange in one of the gardens, and as I got close to it I could see it was a variety of Acer palmatum. They often have cultivar names which give you a good indication as to what the plant will look like. A couple of the common cultivar names are Bloodgood, which as you can probably guess has red leaves, and October Glory, which is known for its colour in autumn. The Acer palmatum is often called a Japanese maple. So this week, if you're out and about and you see a small tree with fabulous autumn colour, it may well be one of the Acer species. And if you're looking for a small tree for your garden, or you're wanting to brighten your garden up at this time of year, an Acer palmatum is great for a small garden. Certainly worth considering if you're looking for a small tree to put in your own garden. That's it for this week. I've been Ed Bird, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Latin. Let's talk about the Latin. I'm going to do the podcast, but I'm thinking about, for Christmas, getting some merch for the podcast. Maybe you'll wear it, maybe you won't. You'll have to let me know. But does anyone fancy like an Ed Bird t-shirt? I think we could come up with something funny there for that. I better speak to Ed before I use his name on merch. He might want royalties from it as well. I'll get him to sign something. But how about that? Fancy an Ed Bird t-shirt? Fancy a podcast t-shirt with some of the greatest songs from the podcast? I'll have a little look at that over the next coming weeks. This week we have got a question. Have you got a question for me? Rob on Twitter asks, I've just started getting the houseplants and brought a few. How often shall I water my plants? And also, apparently I can't water them with tap water. That is a good question. Actually, if you fly back, Rob, if you just got into houseplants, me and Matt talked about that at the festival. I think there's about 2 episodes, if you go back a couple, of me and Matt at the festival talking about houseplants. Matt went crazy on the houseplant chat that day. Pop out and listen to them. Yeah, there is a thing about not using tap water, and I'll be honest with you, I have such bad luck with houseplants. Like, really bad luck with houseplants. One of the pubs that I look after, there's a couple of pubs now where I have some of the Skinny Jean Gardener designed garden walls, and they're all full of houseplants. And God, do you know what? I was having a chat with someone the other day. Houseplants don't like beer, guys. They don't like beer. So I don't know why everyone keeps... I know you're doing it. Keeps putting beer in them. That doesn't help them. I was about to say, unless you prove me wrong. But actually, I know they don't help them because they keep dying. But there is a thing, about using like either bottled water or rainwater. What bottled water is a pretty expensive way of doing it, but if you can use rainwater, that's a great way to look after your plants. But also, not water them too much is something I've learned quite a lot. Dale, my brother, had an orchid. Now, I know it's it's a houseplant, isn't it? But probably not a houseplant that I'm used to. And he said, it looks like it's dying. I said, yeah, it is dying, Dale. I brought it out of the pot that it was sitting in. Sitting in or swimming in. The pot was full of water. The roots were soaking and they were rotting away. And that is why. So, especially with orchids, they don't need a lot of water. But it's better to be cruel to be kind, I think. So, yeah, little but often. Is that what we're saying? Or just little? Little. Yeah, houseplants don't need a massive amount of water. They do differ from plant to plant. But yeah, that's about as much advice as I can give you on houseplants this week. But yeah, pop back to the Matt Biggs chats. They'll definitely be able to help you out. Have you got a question for me? There is no 1 minute task this week because I'm working on something. I mean, it's already there, but I've just got to get into it. There's a basket on Mano Mano, and I can share that with you in my show notes. So over the next few weeks, we'll be working on that to make sure the 1 minute task is as easy as possible for you to go and order those bits. Plus, it's a little bit of a long one this week with Valentine. So should we go back to that chat? Let's do it. It's the Garden Chit Chat.
Do you find they come away really inspired once you've shown them something that they never thought they could do?
I think so. And what do we do with children? We tell them stories.
Yeah.
If you teach them long lists of facts, God, I wouldn't even want to learn that.
Boring.
You know, if you tell stories, you learn the information. I used to teach for, sadly, it is no longer, but the Jamie Oliver Academy.
Yeah.
Every year it was the same. I'd go into the room and there'd be some kids with their hoods up and their feet on the table. And I've got a kind of plummy public school voice and I'd walk and go, "Oh, hello everybody." And they'd look at me like, who is this bloody idiot, like that. But then the minute you take a box of live crayfish and tip them on the table and they're scuttling off in all directions, or, you know, pull out a whole load of rabbits and say, right, we're going to skin these, they're yours.
Yeah.
And then they, you know, all these tough kids who spend most of their nights eating in Chicken Village or Chicken Cottage or Chicken whatever it is. They're all sitting down eating wild rabbit that they've cooked, and it does great things to them.
Yeah.
You know, they leave and they look proud and they like it.
Yeah.
And then one of them said, "But I put chili on all my food." And I said, "Fine, put some chili in it then."
Yeah.
You know, let's make a new dish.
That's what it's all about. Yeah.
But it doesn't take much. But I think you know, kids they don't get enough attention. I live in an urban city where there's a lot of kids that I see on the street, and the way they behave and the way they talk to each other, it makes me feel desperately sad.
Yeah.
And it just comes down to love and attention.
Yeah.
And then when you've got their attention, you can pretty much feed them anything. But if you don't give them the attention, then
that's it. Yeah.
Then, you know.
I think it's fantastic that we were saying the other day that about cooking has slowly become more part of like shows like this and gardening shows. It's good to get the mix of showing where it's grown and then how to use it.
I think it's very important, but I'm still concerned that, you know, I think the more you are in the countryside, there's an argument at cooking is kind of stronger and understanding stronger, as I've said all the way through. But you know, if forever we're being told by people we're having a food revolution, and you know, and I'm a foodie. You know, God, if anyone says I'm a foodie, I'm going to throw a bucket of water on them because we don't. I think we know actually less about food than we've ever known.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how many restaurants there are, or if you can buy Argentinian cloud melons or whatever it is. The fact is that we don't know how to handle the simplest stuff. So I don't want to be negative, be positive, because it always kind of keeps the machine going. But at the same time, I think we know less about food than ever. We waste more food than ever.
Yeah.
We eat far too much. And so I think we've got a lot of very serious food issues.
Yeah.
And a million campaigns that get started and don't get finished. So I think, and what's so funny about that is that then you go to, you know, you go abroad, and when my children live up in the Pyrenees and stuff, and you know, people don't make a fuss about food there, but they all cook.
Yeah.
And you know, you're in a village, and you know, that place is all about almonds and olives, and you know, but it's funny. The food world is a mess. And
I thought about all the worlds. I thought the food one was in the best position. But I suppose you see it. From your side.
all I want to do is just to teach. I mean, I think what's important to me about cooking a lot in nature is that, stand in a place that might be famous for rhubarb or whatever, but understand what that place might be famous for.
Yeah.
Understand where you are. Are you by a river? Are you up a tree? Are you in a... And you can always make food.
Yeah.
And I think, as I always say, I just want to tell people stories. I want to take the fear away of ingredients. I love the look on people's faces when they go, my God, I would never have touched that, but I really like it.
Yeah.
And that's all I can do, really. I'm loath to kind of get involved in huge campaigns which kind of fizzle. But what I can do is go around, hopefully kind of exciting people about food and that it doesn't have to be complicated. Everyone's trying to be a kind of pocket, home Heston. I'm an international grandmother in my cooking style, so keep it simple and wonderful things happen.
That's cool, man. I can't let you go without just talking about the gin quickly.
Yeah.
Because it was quite interesting how you were telling me how you make it.
We started a distillery in the wilds of Northumberland, and we were very worried about whether the world really needed another gin. But my business partner happens to be one of the world's great barmen, hates being called a mixologist. He's a kind of drinks historian, amazing man called Nick Strangeway. There was a biochemist who's part of the team. There's Walter, who owns the property. There was me, but we did start with a gin because Nick and I couldn't find the gin that we really wanted.
Yeah.
Although we do like many other gins, and here we were in a property which was covered in juniper, wild juniper, it's all wild, and Douglas fir trees and wonderful kind of herbs.
Yeah.
So the thing was under our nose, and so it was, let's make a kind of cold climate gin of kind of clarity and purity. But to change botanicals around, people are going, how many botanicals has it got in it? It's not the point.
Yeah.
And so we were like, we're about juniper. We're going to pick it when it's unripe, and we're going to use ripe as well, so you get the full life of it. But we couldn't get the drink we wanted by using traditional distilling equipment on its own.
Right.
So then the business, Carebury, one of the business partners, said, look, let's look at supercritical CO2 extraction, because that's used by the perfume industry, who really understand flavour and smell.
Yeah.
And then we realised that also we needed something called rotary evaporation, because very delicate plants cooked in a still at 78 degrees or thereabouts were just being annihilated.
Yeah.
But if you put a vacuum on a still, and then you can lower the boiling point by half. So suddenly we had these 3 different machines. It was very kind of, and our gin came out, and it's very nice to win a double gold in the World Spirit Awards from a kind of rain-lashed cottage in the middle of nowhere in Northumberland. But now we've done what I'd refer to as a kind of category drink. We kind of want to go and do the kind of follow the weirdness. So we've got a drink made of trees coming out in July,
right.
And then we've got a very odd thing made out of 2 famous British bushrow hedge berries coming out. And we're going to be a bit nuttier in the future, but the gin's gone down well, and we made it really for everyone loves pouring tons of tonic into their gin in the UK. I find it it's quite hard to identify what gin you're drinking once the tonic's in it. So we really made Heppel for making a really good martini.
Nice.
Direct hit to the magazine. So we're the Moreland Spirit Company. Heppel's our first drink.
Cool.
And then new things will be coming out in the way.
Oh, awesome,
Yeah.
man. What you got going on the rest of the year? Where you at?
Rest of the year, we've. I think partly because of the things I'm saying to you, I think that it's very hard now to. While I very much enjoyed television,
Yeah.
The simplest way to say it is if I edited my own films, nobody would watch them.
Right.
But my frustration was that if you have the drama of the BBC saying, we want you to go and put a hole in a deer,
Yeah.
okay, I'll do that for you because I stalk and I'll shoot a deer for you. But then when my hands were inside its stomach, pulling its guts out, that never ends up on television.
Right.
And I think that's deeply irresponsible. And also there's a lot of good tasty bits in there as well,
Yeah.
not just the venison. So what we've done is to raise some money 3 of us, and we're going to go and make our own stuff.
Well, that's good.
And then we will hop around. I think the minute you put these programs to what we want to make to a global market, while people here would rather watch baking programs or food competitions, you put that out to a global market, and there's a lot of people who want to watch it. I think the other thing as well is that I was forever being told to shut up. That there's a lot of food practices around the world that in 20 years will be gone. We'll never see them again. I was with my children in the Pyrenees tapping almonds out of trees with 16-foot long sticks when you couldn't hear a car, and then was told that they couldn't sell the almonds because the minute you go down the mountain into the town, all the towns, it's Chinese almonds everywhere. They can't even sell them, so they give them away. And so I really want to kind of go and record these things because they'll never be seen again. And there's a whole generation of kind of old people who really understood a lot of wonderful things, and while we live in this moronic world of kind of badly made coffee and fast food, and I want to go and film the things that really matter, or matter to me.
That's it.
But hopefully tell a wonderful story, because again, it's not necessarily about the almonds, it's about the 80-year-old guy who's lived on top of a mountain and hunts boar, and there's some amazing stories out there. And while we're busy painting everything dead dolphin grey and drinking frappuccinos, I couldn't care less about that stuff. So I just want to get out there and I'm anti, to hell with Justin Bieber and long live the eel fisherman of wherever.
Well, thanks for being on the podcast.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And, I shall see you soon, hopefully.
I hope so too.
Cheers, man.
Take care.
Chat. The garden chit chat. Thank you very much to him for being on the podcast. I look forward to bumping into him again. Maybe he'll give me a bottle of that gin. No? Anyone? Great. Thank you very much to you guys for joining me. Look, do me a favour. Look, I don't ask for any money for this podcast. I don't ask much from you. But do me a favour. This is all you got to do, right? Don't flip over to the next. I don't care if you're listening to... Just hold off if you listen to another podcast, unless it's mine, obviously. Then you crack on. But before you do that, right? Get your phone out of your pocket. Get off this podcast and share it for me. Or just tell Mano that I'm a great guy. That'll be absolutely fine. But more importantly, share it to your mum, your dad, your nan, your brother, your best mate that you don't really speak to much from school, but you've still got them as a friend on Facebook, so spam them with it. It's just literally spam them. And that's the only payment I need. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic week, and wrap up because it's getting chilly. Don't listen to them weather reports. I'll never believe them. Much love. Good. Bye.
Skinny Jane is not my lover. It's just a guy that taught me about gardening. Skinny Jane is not my lover. It's just a guy that taught me about gardening. My first ever shovel was purchased from the local store, Jack's.
Migration.
Skinny Jane is not my lover. It's just a guy that taught me about gardening. Skinny Jane is not my lover. It's just a guy that taught me about gardening. Skinny Jane is not my lover. It's just a guy that taught me about gardening. Skinny Jane is not my lover. It's just a guy that taught me about gardening.
Hello and welcome to a very special World House Chef Brothers Session of Garden Special.
Carol Fine's idea of paradise. Carol, what brought you down here? I've always lived in the city. And I've always yearned for a garden.
There's a Finley Gainer gardener. Dotson.